let's be real. No one wants to go to the doctors to find out that they have this serious health problem. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you one of the main reasons for why we develop disease and illness in the body. And knowing this is extremely beneficial because it means that you will be able to prevent health issues in the future. And so the main reason for why we're developing disease and illness in the body is because most people operate in survival mode. And that's what's making people sick. And so the way this works is we have two autonomic nervous systems. We have survival mode, which is known as the sympathetic nervous system. And then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest state. And that's known as creation. Now the problem is most people spend their time in survival and not in creation. And it should be the other way around. And so what happens when we're living in survival, it means that we're living in stress. Now 95% of doctors' visits are caused by stress. Now this is because when we're stressed, the stress hormone cortisol shuts down the immune system. And it's so good at shutting down the immune system that if you were to need an organ transplant, the doctors will inject cortisol into you so that your immune system doesn't reject the foreign organ. So this is why we're getting sick. It's stress, and it comes from operating in survival mode. And so here we have the scale of consciousness. This is from Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. And so he calibrated the scale of consciousness, and our natural state of being is love, which vibrates at 500. When we're operating in survival mode, it causes us to operate from these survival emotions. So we operate in these lower frequencies, when really we should be operating in these elevated emotions and these higher frequencies. So that's the first problem with survival mode, is it's causing us to operate down in these lower frequencies in survival. When we're in these lower frequencies as well, we are more matter and less energy. And as we make our way up that scale of consciousness, we become more energy and less matter. So when we operate in these higher frequencies, that is when we actually manifest a really great reality for ourselves. However, if we're operating in these lower frequencies, because there's the laws of the universe, whatever frequency you're tuned into is a reflection you get back. If you're constantly operating in these survival emotions, you're going to keep manifesting a reality where you're having to survive. You know what I mean? Because it's the reflection you get back. So understanding that is crucial, because we want to learn to raise our vibration so that we're operating in these elevated emotions. And I will link a video at the end of this one that will teach you how to raise your vibration and get up into the higher frequencies. But one of those things is keeping yourself out of survival mode. Now, what happens to the body and the brain when we're operating in survival mode and we're stressed is it causes us to operate in high beta. Now, what that means is these are the different brain waves that we have. So we have beta, which is when we're awake, alert, and aware. So right now watching me, you'll be operating in beta. Then we have alpha, which is when we're in a more relaxed state. Then we have theta, which is when we're in the subconscious mind. This is when we're in that dreamlike state. So it's like right before you fall asleep. And when you first wake up in the morning and you're sort of groggy, that's you in theta brainwave. And then delta is when you're in a deep restorative sleep. So as you go to sleep at night, your brainwaves drop. And as you wake up, you go back up that way. And so throughout the day, when you're awake, alert, and aware, you're operating in beta brainwave. Now, beta brainwave is broken down into three. So you've got low beta, mid beta, high beta. We're supposed to be in low and mid beta, but it's when we're stressed that causes our brains to go into high beta brainwaves. So what's happening is basically the brain's going into overdrive. And so have you ever noticed when you're stressed that you have these like scattered thoughts? You can't think clearly. It's because you're in high beta. The brain's in overdrive. And so what happens when your brain's operating in high beta is that you have incoherent brainwave patterns. And then if the brain is functioning incoherently, then what happens is, because the brain controls the rest of the body, it causes the body and the heart to function incoherently as well. So what happens when the brain's functioning incoherently, causing the body to function incoherently? It knocks the body out of balance. It knocks it out of homeostasis. That is when disease and illness start showing up in the body. So the key is to keep yourself out of survival mode, to keep your brain out of the high beta brain waves, to keep yourself in the parasympathetic nervous system in creation so that your body stays in homeostasis and therefore you won't have disease and illness showing up. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of what causes survival mode, because we can be triggered into survival mode by a lot of different things, and being aware of it is the first step. So one of the things that can trigger us into survival mode is things like soul-crushing jobs. I noticed within myself, whenever I was working a job, once I had learned everything that there was to learn, my soul felt really unfulfilled. And so soul-crushing jobs can trigger you to be in survival mode. Financial debt. When you owe all this money, that can trigger you to be in survival mode. And I do have some debt. I have a student loan debt of about 20 grand, but I don't stress about it. They don't really chase me for the money either. So I just don't think about that debt personally, because I know there's no point stressing over it. I have no idea how I'm going to pay it, but I don't allow myself to stress over it. Now, a third way that you could be triggered into survival mode is the fear-mongering on the news or by politicians. And there's a lot of fear-mongering in the world. So fear is down here, which vibrates at 100. It's a survival emotion. They're using fear, like they're manipulating us and using fear to keep us down here and operating in survival. Our natural state is love, which vibrates at 500. So fear's 100, love's 500. That's a big drop. And so if you're one of those people that watches the news and is always watching these politicians, I recommend to just switch it off and stop consuming it, because it's what's causing us to be in fear, and it's what's lowering our vibration. Now, another reason we can be triggered into survival mode is things like just being stressed about your basic needs. So it's like you're being overworked in your job, and then you're getting underpaid for what you're doing, and then all that money that you've worked hard to get goes on, your rent and your food. But then the way the rent prices and the food's going up, caused by inflation, people get triggered over like, how do I pay for my rent? How do I pay for my shelter? How do I pay for food so I can feed myself? When you're stressed over your basic needs, you're operating in survival. And another example of being triggered into survival mode could be something like social anxiety. As a kid, you may have been at school and you may have been embarrassed in front of your class, and the whole class was laughing at you. So now as an adult, you have social anxiety, and going to a social event, even like it could even just be a family gathering, can cause you to be in survival mode, because it's like, am I going to be safe? Or is people going to laugh at me? So survival mode can be caused by a number of things. And I would recommend kind of like, self-awareness is the key. So like getting to know yourself and what is triggering you into survival mode. And that way you can catch yourself out. So I'm also going to share some signs with you on like signs of being in survival mode, so that you can also have awareness around that. Because the first step to get out of survival mode, so I'm going to share some tips with you on how to get out of survival mode. The first step is awareness. You have to be aware of when you're operating in survival mode, so that you can make the choice to switch yourself out of it. So I'm going to share some examples with you of what it looks like to be operating in survival mode. Number 1, you experience little to no joy on a daily basis. Number 2, You're emotionally reactive to everything. Number 3, anxiety and fearful. Number 4, difficulty relaxing. Number 5, burnout, chronic fatigue, tired all the time. Number 6, have a very busy mind. Number 7, you sleep but never feel rested. Number 8, little things can set you off and feel overwhelming. Number 9, social withdrawal. And number 10, increased defensiveness. So those are just some signs to give you an example. There are more signs, and so if you want to know, other signs, I suggest just giving it a Google. But yes, the first step is awareness. You have to be aware of when you're operating in survival so that you can switch yourself out. So the idea is you want to be able to switch yourself from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can operate from creation instead. So the second tip I have for you is to stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is like the longest nerve of the autonomic nervous system, and it starts in the brain and it comes down and it's connected to your throat muscles and your vocal cords, and it comes down to your lungs and heart and into your intestines. And by stimulating this nerve, it will switch you from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. And there are a number of ways that you can stimulate the vagus nerve. So one way is just by deep belly breathing. Because when you operate in survival mode, like most people are, we tend to breathe short and shallow in the chest. And we shouldn't actually be breathing like that because we're not consciously breathing. So what we need to learn to do is to learn to breathe into the belly instead. So we inhale through the nose into the belly, and as you inhale in the nose through the belly, you then want to push the air out of your mouth. So you want the exhale to be longer than the inhale. And just take a few deep belly breaths like that. And that will switch you into the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's a great one to use if you're in the workplace and you find yourself feeling stressed. If someone, the boss might be pissing you off, or a coworker might be pissing you off, and you're like, I need to calm down. Just take some time to yourself to do some deep belly breathing and calm your nervous system down. Another way to stimulate the vagus nerve, well, there's quite a few different things you can do with your throat because it's connected to your throat muscles and your vocal cords. So you can do things like chanting, singing, humming, gargling water, laughing, anything that's going to stimulate it by using your throat, that will switch you into the parasympathetic nervous system. And the third tip I'm going to give you is meditation. Meditation is a great tool, and I highly recommend starting up a daily practice because meditation has so many purposes and so many benefits. There's so many different reasons to meditate, and through meditation, one of the great reasons why meditation is good for keeping yourself out of survival mode is, one, it calms down your nervous system, but two, it also drops your brain waves. So as you go into a meditative state, what happens is you close your eyes and you're disconnecting from the external environment, and as you disconnect from the external environment, your focus starts going on the internal environment, and you have less sensory information going in because you've closed your eyes, right? And so what happens is the neocortex, which is the walnut part of the brain, that like walnut looking part, the neocortex will slow your brain waves down, and so your brain waves will drop from beta to alpha and into theta. So through meditation, you can get into the theta brainwave, and that's just a great way to, like I say, drop your brainwaves if you're operating in this high beta, calming the brain down, calming the nervous system down, and getting into theta brainwave is also when you're in the subconscious mind. So when you're in that state, you can influence your subconscious mind in a really powerful way. So I'd highly recommend starting up a daily meditation practice if you haven't already. And meditation is a practice. It's something you've got to keep doing it to get better. Like when I first started meditating about 7 years ago, I had no clue what I was doing. I was sitting in a meditation like am I doing this right? Is this what it's supposed to be? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Whereas now, because I've been practicing at it for so long, I really understand it. And not just from experiencing it, but I intellectually understand like the science behind it and how it all works and the effects it has on us and why it's so powerful. And if you start up a daily meditation practice, you can literally change your life. And if you don't know how to meditate, like if you're new to it and you're like me 7 years ago and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, I have made a video for beginners that I will also link at the end of this video so you can learn more about how to get into meditation. And number 4, the last tip I'll give you is to just go out in nature. Something as simple as going for a walk in nature. Now, this is also because being in the city, it overstimulates us because there's so much sensory information going on. You know, you've got all these different sounds like lawnmowers, leaf blowers, you've got police sirens or fire engines, you've got all these signs everywhere like telling you to buy this, buy that. Like our senses get overloaded and that can cause us to feel stressed as well. So getting out of the city, going out into nature will reduce your stress because just being in nature, it just calms you and it balances and grounds your energy. And it's even better if you take your shoes and socks off and connect to the earth. So that's a great way. Just go for a walk in nature. It will reduce your stress. It'll improve your mood, improve your mental health. So I hope you like this video. I hope you got some sort of value out of it. And if you did, let me know by smashing the like button or write a comment. I'm also going to recommend a couple of documentaries that you could watch to learn more about how to heal the body, because we have the power within us to heal from anything, and science is backing this. And that documentary is called Heal. And there's another one I watched that I think is very important to watch called Emotion. And that talks more about how stored emotions in the body can also create disease and illness. So I recommend giving those 2 documentaries a watch. I watched them on the Gaia app. And if you don't have the Gaia app, you can get a free week. Like if you sign up with them, you get that free week trial. And so if you don't want to like actually pay for the app, just get the free week trial and watch them during that week. And yeah, I'm also going to link the Raise Your Vibration video and how to meditate at the end of this one so you can learn more about that and work on yourself, getting into these higher frequencies and getting out of survival mode. If you like this sort of content, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification. Have an awesome day. Thanks for watching. Peace.